it's miraculous the way he does that. So my experience was that he got a hold of my heart and showed me how loved I was. And then he transformed my relationships with my children and my friends and family. That's what you have to look forward to.
Well, since we're on that topic, maybe that fits into some of the other questions we got. We got this question a couple times over. If there was one piece of advice you could offer to moms and then entering the blank years. I have middle school, I have high school, and it's all of them are rebellious sons.
Rebellious sons.
What advice would you give? Well, and in particular, one of the people asking the question makes a great distinction. They ask, how do you give them grace and yet show that they need to be responsible and do their work? I think that's awesome because this basically is your story with that issue.
Yes. Yeah. Half of me wants to say, I don't know.
I love that. Right.
But there's another really practical answer to that question. And I think that it's not a cut and dry thing, you know. Walking with the Lord never is. The lawless need the law. So when you're dealing with the child who's kicking you in the shins, well, he needs a little discipline, right? And that is gracious. But the discipline he needs, it amounts to love, you know? So it was difficult for me when I was in the midst of dealing with a rebellious kid to remember that however personal it felt, it wasn't personal. And to remember when I was dealing with individual incidents, to make love the forward thing, the present thing, you know, and to remember that the discipline that I was offering was an extension of that love, that it wasn't retaliation, but it was meeting a need in my son. And I think the only way to do that is to remember that you have that need too, that you also are the rebellious child wandering in error in need of correction. Because really, we don't have grace for another person until we see our own need. When we see our own need and our own sin, it fills up the screen, so there's not really room to cast stones at other people. When you really know your own deficiencies, there's a well of compassion and patience that gets tapped into. There's a well of grace that can flow out of you like a river because it's the grace that you've received, right? So I hope that answers your question. It's a combination. Obviously, if your son's being rebellious, he needs to be disciplined. But at the same time, what he really needs is your love and compassion. He probably needs you to identify with him in some way. You're not different than he is.
Just older.
Just older. Exactly.
Oh, man.
And in a different role, right? You're not the kid, you're the parent. So you're called to a different thing in this relationship of yours. But before the cross, you're just the same. Two needy beggars.
Well, and I don't mean to steal the microphone here, but what I will tell you is that because of that experience and how vulnerable you were willing to be with me, I am now beginning to recognize in myself the things that you told me about yourself. Like one of the things I've been saying to my friends and family recently is I'm way more like my mom than I thought I was.
I'm sorry.
It's great. I love it because I already know how to deal with life as mom. I watched you do it. It's going to be great.
Well, along those same lines, one of the difficult things I know was the balance between being a teacher and being a mom. So how did you handle those two roles?
Being a teacher and being a mother simultaneously.
To the same people.
Yeah, that was hard. My middle son, Aaron, said one of the most profound things to me that any of my children have ever said. And it was in response to the question, what's the best thing and the worst thing about homeschooling? And he said, the best thing about homeschooling is that your mom is your teacher. The worst thing about homeschooling is that your mom is your teacher. And maybe you have to know Aaron for that to really land, but he's exactly right. it's very difficult to wear both hats in a way, because as a teacher, you know, you are responsible to hold the kid responsible for many, many things, right? And so with a reluctant learner, your foot is ever in the kid's back, right? And that gets exhausting. I remember when one of my sons graduated, I thought, oh, praise the Lord. I don't have to put my foot in his back anymore and make him do this thing that he's so tired of doing. Yeah, double that in quarantine. Absolutely, Heather. But I think it's important along the way to remember that at the end of the day, at the end of the road, you're not going to stop being mom. But you are going to stop being their high school teacher or their grade school teacher. Eventually, they're going to graduate, and you're not going to be their day teacher anymore. Hopefully, they'll still be interested in learning from you,
Yes,
right?
please
Yes,
graduate.
please graduate.
Hallelujah.
Please graduate. Yeah. So anyway, I think it's important not to lose sight of the mom hat in the midst of the teacher hat, because it's the one that is last man standing.
Sweet. Well, you want to choose something else to give away?
Yeah, this is getting short here.
No, we have these two baskets. Do
you want to do a basket? You want to do a grand prize giveaway?
Yeah, let's do the basket. Which
we
one?
have 2 grand prize giveaways.
Ooh. Oh, this is my favorite basket.
This is why I chose it. This
Okay.
is the greatest basket
This
that we have
is
ever invented.
the best basket. Okay, so this is
There's no way to show you
I
what's
like
in
to
it.
call this the book lover's basket.
Yeah.
It has a brand new set of moleskin notebooks. I don't know about you, but it was hard not to steal this for myself.
I know, I'm watching these gifts and think, I want that.
No, you don't.
I'm the one that wrote a book. I want the prize.
It has a candle. I got this candle for my husband, actually. It's one of his favorites. It's called Gray Flannel.
She bought it because I used to have a cologne that was called that.
It's very yummy. There's a nifty set of brand new pens. They're like high quality pens. And also we just threw in, it's Center for Lit, so we threw in the bibliophiles, all 3 of the bibliophiles bookmarks that we have on the website. So, Megan, choose a number between 1 and 37.
Between 1 and 37, 28.
28. That's going to take me a while to count to, so I'm going to ask a question while I do that, and then I will announce who the winner is. So, question. How about this one? Here's a question that we got a couple times as well. One of the things about you that some people might know is that you completed your master's degree while homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got a lot of questions from people who want to know your advice about how to balance your own continuing education with that of your children. There's this person says, I struggle to find time to study the things I'd like to study when those things don't line up with my children's ages or interests.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely difficult. There were a lot of years in there that what I was studying was their curriculum. And that's kind of the job of the teacher, to always be working with the curriculum and their book lists. And I spent a lot of years reading juvenile fiction and all of that sort of thing so that I could teach the next day, the next week, the next month, you know. And I think it's important to remember that the time that you spend actually schooling your kids is really short. It doesn't feel like it because, you know, it's all very daily. But when you get to the end, you look back and you think that was really short. And now there's all this time, you know, to continue my own education. Also, the thing that I experienced is that the time that they're in those little children's books is even shorter because they're growing. Every single day they're growing apace and their interests are expanding and they're more and more capable as they grow of intellectual activity until pretty soon those books that you want to read, they can read them too. And those classes that you've been preparing for all along, well now they're classes that you want to take. And boy, that's the brass ring of homeschooling in my estimation. When your kids get old enough to actually have those big conversations with you about the great ideas, it was the most fun ever. So I think just remembering that there's plenty of time, that to everything there's a season. That's what the Bible says, and a time for every purpose under heaven. And if you don't rush it, I think submitting yourself to the yoke, being where you are. Was it Jim Elliott that said, wherever you are, be fully there. Live to the fullest extent every situation that you believe to be God's will for your life. So if you're right in the middle of the toddler years, well, obviously that's where he's put you. And so engage yourself in those things, and don't fear and fret that you're not going to be able to do those other things, in time. It's that no one can live every lifetime at the same time. You have to take things as they come, and you won't be sorry. You won't be sorry, because those times are really precious too, and they're not coming back. So give yourself to what is today, and schedule a little time. When I was trying to do my master's work, my kids were all, see, Ian had already gone off to college. Megan, had you gone off to college yet? I think you had just gone to college. So I had 2 already out of the home, and I still had 4 at home. But I'll tell you what, I had already done K through 12 curriculum twice over with them. And so my path was already smooth in a lot of ways. I wasn't learning the curriculum necessarily. I was just learning how to apply that curriculum and vary that curriculum for the needs of individual children. And that left me a little headspace to do things like work on my master's program. And it worked for me because it wasn't a traditional bricks and mortar classroom. It was designed for distance learners. And it allowed me to do one class at a time. And I would get up really early in the morning. I didn't have any babies anymore. That never would have worked when my kids were babies, because no matter how early I set my alarm clock, they would anticipate me and they would get up that early too. So if I set the clock for 6, they were up at 6. If I set it for 5:30, they were up at 5:30. It didn't matter.
Man, we sound like real little turds.
Yeah, that's, what'd you say, Ian?
I said, we sound like little turds.
No, you were just, your ears were very sharp.
Babies are jerks, man.
Good hearing. So anyway, I just had to finally give myself to that stage of life and say, it's not time for this right now. But eventually it was time for it. And I think it was perfect. The timing was perfect because I brought the life content and the experience that I had through my adult years of raising a family into my study of all of the things that I got to read. And I read with greater comprehension and engaged with the great ideas with greater maturity than I would have 20 years earlier. So it was a really rich experience for me. Yeah, I would say not to fret and fear and try and make fetch happen. Don't try to make fetch happen.
Well, I know everyone is like on the edge of their seats to know who won the prize, but there's actually a question that goes along with that. So I'm going to ask that. Sorry, I'm going to be torturous here. But so what about the person who doesn't have the same experience with literature that you do? Someone asks, I didn't receive a rich literary education. I feel so far behind. My oldest will be entering the 6th grade, and I know I can't catch up. Where do I even start?
Well, at Center for Lit, we like to start with children's picture books. And the reason is this. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she had 6 kids. She had gone to college and she'd gotten a nursing degree, but she didn't get a liberal arts education. It was a science education, and she wanted to give her kids a great books education, but she had no idea where to begin. And her oldest was a senior. So they were reading the classics, and they would get to the end of a classic and she'd look at him and say, so did you like it? And he'd say, I don't know. I guess so. Did you like it? Yeah, I guess I liked it. And that was it. So she came to me and she said, how can I have a rich conversation with my son about the great ideas in these books? I mean, these are the classics of Western civilization. I know I should be getting more out of these books with him than we are. So I began to think, how can I give her what I got by pursuing college degree in literature? She doesn't have time. She's got babies at home and diapers to change, and she doesn't have time to go back to college in order to tool up to give her kid this kind of an education. And I was still nursing babies at this time and reading to little toddlers. And I had a pile of books sitting in a basket by my fireplace. They were picture books, and I was reading them with great relish to my kids on the daily basis. And as I was reading one of these picture books aloud, I had a vision. I realized that a picture book has all the parts of good story. And because the author of a picture book is writing for children, they are using all of the tools in their toolbox in order to engage that student's imagination, that child's imagination, and hold his attention. So it's a rich repository of literary devices. It's a wonderful opportunity to teach a student how to read a book and engage with the non-literal reading tradition, right? How to read for figurative meaning and things like that. And because it's so short, you can read it in a single setting, right? Not like War and Peace, for example. So I decided to have this woman come to my house, and she brought along a bunch of her friends. It ended up being, maybe 13 or 14 women in my living room over the course of 6 weeks, once a week. And what we would do is we would read a children's picture storybook, and then we'd look at one of the elements of fiction. And simultaneously, we had decided to read together Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. So after we finished treating a single literary device with children's picture book, we would turn to Kill a Mockingbird, and we would examine that element of story in To Kill a Mockingbird, asking all of the same questions we asked in order to unlock the children's picture book to try to understand what Lee was about with her story. And it was fabulous. We had a fabulous time together. And by the end, we were all saying, wow, I can't believe how the same questions that you used in order to talk about this children's picture book unlocked Harper Lee's story so that I could see what she was creating here with her work of art. And this is amazing. I never thought about this like this before. I'm going to do this at home. And that particular curriculum we put together in our Teaching the Classics Basics seminar. So if you really want to know, how do I tool up to do this? It's a very short seminar. Actually, my husband presents, and there's a little syllabus that goes along with it that I wrote that contains the questions that you use in order to ask questions and get discussions started with your kids about these stories. And we encourage everybody to start, regardless of their age level, with children's picture books, because they're very non-threatening. Everybody can read them. And they're beautiful. From there, you can springboard out into books at your own reading level, at your students' reading level, and use all of the same questions to engage those stories and those great authors. Does that answer your question? I hope it does. It was a long answer. I'm sorry.
Great.
I expected nothing less of you.
I am not much of a condenser.
Not your favorite thing.
Well, the suspense has been long, but Liz Bell, you are our Book Lover Basket winner.
Yay!
Congratulations. So if you want to email me, actually, I just realized that I'm taking note of everything, and I should be able to email you because of Zoom, but if you wouldn't mind emailing me with your shipping address, we will get you.
And just because of the long
basket.
break, let's do another smaller giveaway.
Okay.
Here in
Cool.
the meantime,
Yeah.
a copy of Ready Readers.
Who doesn't have this? Let us know if you don't have this.
So this is our high school, unless I missed my guess. Yeah, this is our high school literature volume 1. This has some bona fide classics in it. We're talking about teacher guides on The Odyssey and The Scarlet Letter, Tale of Two Cities, The Great Divorce. This is going to be as much fun for you as it will for the students, I promise.
One hopes. Okay, so Dad has been the one who hasn't given us a number yet. So I'm going to go from the bottom because they're just rolling in.
Pick
People
a
who don't
number
have it.
between 1 and
Just pick a number.
47.
No, pick a number that won't be too difficult for me to count up.
I always pick prime numbers, so I'm going to say 7.
7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stacy.
I love that I
Stacey.
told
Did
you.
Stacey already win one?
Just
No.
made her
No,
count.
Kimberly.
Stacy has not won one yet.
Stacey, congratulations.
It's you. So Emily@centerforlit.com. If you could send us your shipping address, we will get your Ready Readers to you.
Awesome.
With that, prizes,
They're flying off the shelf.
flying off the
Dresses are
shelf.
flying out of
We
here.
have two prizes left.
No, hold on. We have 1, 2, and then
Two.
3. We have that one too.
That's
Nicole,
what I was talking about.
who always
Oh,
picks
the
prime
number.
numbers?
Okay.
I do.
3 prizes
There it
left.
is.
Why prime numbers?
I don't know. It's cool.
It's because you have to have some sort of principle by which to make everything a game.
That's true.
That's true.
Is
Very
Grandma
homeschool
Wiles
dad of
here?
you.
Is Grandma Wiles in our webinar?
I don't know if Grandma Wiles is here or
She
not.
is going to be.
Because she asked a question, but I was going to wait till she was here.
Aunt Barb is here. Hi, Aunt Barb.
We're looking for Grandma Wiles.
We'll wait for Grandma Wiles to ask her question. All right, so then let's ask a fun one. Someone wants to know, she says, Barbara Brown Taylor is known for asking this question, and you can answer it however you want, serious, thoughtful, silly, clever, etc. And the question is, what is saving your life right now?
What's saving my life right now?
Yeah.
And I think she means in the media recommendation sense.
Or
And
like what's helping you get through the days right now? I mean, these are long, hard days that we're all in right now. So what's getting you through?
Oh, okay. So you get the serious answer first.
I'm shocked.
What?
Oh, hush, Ian.
Serious?
What's saving my life right now? My husband is saving my life right now. Honest to goodness, he is totally Superman right
But
now.
they can't go out and get one of those.
I'm sorry for you. He's taken. But he's saving my life right now. We have a daughter. Our youngest daughter is engaged to be married and hoping to get married in late June. And with the COVID thing going on and everything in the world closed and everything up in the air, there's no way to know what's going to happen next. So there's lots and lots to do, and it's almost impossible to get it done. So my husband is saving my life right now because he's doing a lot of the things himself, and he is getting up with me in the middle of the night and telling me not to worry and reminding me of the gospel and of how much God loves me. And so that is what is getting me through this time right now.
Do you have a not serious answer?
My not serious answer. No, that comes later.
Oh.
It comes later?
No, I think that will come later. My not serious answer right now. I think I got a new recipe for chai tea that is delighting me. That's a really silly.
No, that's awesome. Tell us about it.
Okay, so
Chai tea is getting me through.
I love chai tea, and I usually go get it at this little place in town, and it's always so much better than what I make at home. And you buy those little mixes, you mix it up, and blah, it's not any good. But I figured it out. What you got to do is you mix that up with if you have a way to steam milk, it's best. But if you get whole milk and you heat it up, and then you put it in your coffee press,
In a French
and
press.
you froth it in a French press, and then you pour it in, you make your chai with that. It is awesome.
I gotta try that. That sounds amazing.
That chai tea, looking forward to that all day long every day is sort of what's getting me through. Isn't that silly?
No.
See, now that was well done. They
Yeah,
can go out and get
that
one of
was
those.
literally the spirit that the question was asked
There it
in.
is.
So that was a great answer.
Beautiful. Well done. Well done indeed.
Yeah, so I see this question in the chat box. This was Grandma Wild's question. When are you going to write your picture book?
Oh, guys, I have written one, but I told you I'm not an artist. So I've actually written 2 picture books, except no pictures, just books. So there's your trouble. I guess we'll publish them as soon as we find somebody who's willing to illustrate for me.
Well, I think Megan would do a good job.
I think so too, but she's pretty busy and she's writing her own beautiful children's picture books.
That's true. So to be clear, the recipe for the tea is, do you have a mix that you like?
You can get any mix
mix
that you like.
You
The
put it
key
in
is whole milk,
whole milk.
heat it on the stove, and then frothed
In a French press.
in a French press.
You're literally just like pressing the French press up and down to
Yep,
froth
you got to
it.
get a lot of air in that milk. It gets really big, and then you pour it in and mix it up, and then pour a little so there's froth on top. So good. Try it.
Awesome. Well, someone says that you share their tastes when it comes to media consumption, and they are looking for a TV show recommendation.
TV show recommendation, like a series? Okay, so right now we are watching Friday Night Lights, which I missed that the first go round, and it's got 11 seasons, which is great
No, I
right
think it's
now.
only has 5 seasons.
I thought it was 11.
Well, 5, that's a huge
Fringe
Okay,
has
display.
well,
11 seasons.
It's got a
Those
lot
are
of seasons.
very different.
And so
Super different.
Yep.
11. 5 and 11.
I don't watch
That's
a lot of TV, but I am
It
watching
has
Friday Night
5.
Lights.
She
right
thought
now.
it had 11.
I'm enjoying that. I would
Sweet.
recommend that. It's super soap opera-y though, so be prepared.
Because half of what you're looking
Literally,
at.
the entire chat box recognized at the same time that they're both prime numbers. It started
and
going,
11.
prime, it's all prime numbers. That's hilarious. Whew.
Well, before we maybe get to a more serious question, do you want to give something away?
Yeah, let's give some more things away.
Do you want to get, yes, a bibliophile's mug.
Ooh, I love it.
It's a pretty great mug.
Yeah.
It is.
The
I
shape
love
of
that
it in
mug.
particular with the lip is wonderful. It's one of my favorite mugs to drink out of in the morning. Okay,
Drink
Mom.
the chai tea. Yes, Matthew.
Yes, you can
got
put
it.
the chai tea in the mug. So, Mom, why don't you choose a number between 1 and 41?
21, 40. How about 2?
Not prime.
2.
Wait a minute, it is prime.
Given
It is
to the early numbers. Amber, you get the mug. Amber, do you already have the mug?
I know, I said it too
Amber
soon,
gets the
Kristen,
mug.
sorry.
Amber, if you're lying, we will know.
We'll know.
Amber gets the mug. So if you want to email me your shipping address, we will get that to you. Okay, so I want to do a little section. I see that we're getting to the top of the hour. So I want to make sure that we get to this question. And the question has to do with book recommendations. Obviously, here we are releasing a book. So we need some book recommendations. And let's start with this one. A very sweet note from a woman who's struggling, whose husband has recently died. And she is looking for some books that will renew her vision and give her hope and courage at this time. And so I would like to know the books that you return to, or books that you look back now and see that would have been helpful to you when you needed some strength and courage for your homeschooling journey.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, there have been a handful of wonderful books that I've gone back to over and over again throughout the years, but off the top of my head, the one that I would recommend is called Avas Child, and it's by Brennan Manning. And it's an amazing book about the love of God. And like I said at the beginning, when I was reading for my own book, I really think that's all any of us need, regardless of our circumstances. What we really need is to know how much God loves us, because that answers every question. So I would recommend that because it's so rich and full of the love of God for sinners.
I want to give these books away, but I'm thinking, why don't we give that one to this woman who asked the question?
Okay.
I'll send her a copy of Avas Child.
Great idea.
That sounds wonderful.
Yep. And
Yeah.
Heather's right. Just about anything by Brennan Manning is worth reading.
Mm-hmm. He wrote some really amazing things. He wrote another book called The Ragamuffin Gospel that I would highly recommend too. It's very good.
It's true. We are going to be reading Avas Child in Pelican Society in a couple months.
Oh,
Are we really?
wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Another book that I would recommend it's actually fiction. It's not nonfiction. And it's C.S. Lewis's Till We Have Faces. And it's a book about grace. So I think that book is sustaining for me. It walks me through my own dilemmas, poetically speaking, which gives me just enough distance from the subject matter to be able to contemplate it clearly. So I would recommend that. It's a really beautiful treatment of grace.
Who needs a copy of Till We Have Faces? In the chat box.
Number.
This is a fun game.
Number.
I'm just going to let it roll in for a second. Ian, do you want to choose this number? We're back to you.
I do. I would like to choose 6.
6.
Not a prime number.
Not a prime number. I did have to think though.
Let's see. 1, 2.
Partially because I'm not
3.
really sure what a prime number is.
Jean Lee, you're the 6th person from the bottom who said they don't have one.
Failure.
So if you want to send me your shipping address, Emily@centerforlit.com, we'll send you a copy of Till We Have Faces. Great book.
It's such a good book.
Also, shut up, Kristen.
We've all heard about Ian's math journey.
I know, that's true. Burned. All my fault. What can I tell you? There's another one though. Can I recommend one more?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay. It's by Robert Capon, who is a theologian, who died pretty recently,
Last couple of years.
last couple of years. And he wrote a book called Kingdom, Grace, and Judgment. And he goes through the parables of Jesus, and he finds grace. You guys, he finds grace in every single parable. It's amazing. I would recommend that dramatically for anybody really needing to be encouraged about the love of God and the gospel.
Capon, the famous theologian who wrote Supper of the Lamb.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's been kind of having a
Also a
renewal.
great book.
Yeah. Who wants a copy of Kingdom, Grace, and Judgment? Cape on.
People are quick. One's a prime number. I vote for Matthew.
Matthew? He first come, first serve. Matthew was the first to say it. We'll give Matthew a copy of Kingdom, Grace, and Judgment. So if you want to email me, we will get that to you, Matthew.
No double ups yet, so that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been remarkably lucky. Okay. So
Awesome.
that was
Preacher
the
gets the
first
book on
book
parables.
question.
Oh, I love
A little
that.
serious.
That's what?
That was the first book question. That one was a little more serious, but let's have some other book recommendations. Someone wants to know a fun summer read.
A fun summer read. Oh, you guys, I'm the worst ever at this. I go blank when you ask me book questions. Isn't that the worst? How can I possibly? I love books. Fun summer read. Oh, that's a good idea.
I love that one.
I did love that. I recently read on a vacation. I found in a thrift store this book called My Year in Provence. I'm trying to remember who wrote it though. Can you remember who wrote it? I can't remember who wrote it right now.
Someone Google it.
If only we
Yeah,
had
we
a
have to Google it.
device in our pockets that
but
could
it's-
tell us.
It's like it's a travel, not a travel log, but kind of like it's a journal. It's a journal, kind of. He writes about, he and his wife went to Provence for 1 year, and they bought a little stone cottage in Provence. I mean, they kind of lived the dream, you know?
Peter
And he-
Mile.
What's that?
Peter Mile?
Yeah, that's
Mile?
it. Mayle, M-A-Y-L-E.
Mayle?
Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. And
Don't tell them the story.
it's
Love.
kind of journalistic. So if you enjoy that kind of story, I thought it was like a vacation reading that book. Really fun.
What's the age level on that book? Joe wants to know.
It's absolutely an adult book.
Adult book.
If you're talking about fun reads for kids, depending on the grade level, I'd probably go with the Penderwicks.
Yep.
The Penderwicks, that's a fun read for
Oh, yeah.
kids. Or maybe the Ramona books, the Beverly Cleary books about Ramona the Pest.
Oh, I dug the Ramona the
Yeah,
Pest
yes,
books.
That's really fun. It really depends on who you're talking about. Who's the book for? Is it for an adult or for a child, or I don't know?
Well, I people ask both questions, so there you go. You just did it.
Okay.
Well, only one you're missing is like a upper junior high, lower high school, that middle range.
Junior high, high school, something you're not going to assign to them in class. So just fun, frivolous reading. Let's see. Oh,
Gary
anything
Schmidt.
by Gary Schmidt. I'm always,
Yeah.
but you guys know that. I'm always on about Gary Schmidt. He's amazing. Anything he ever wrote is wonderful. I just read Okay for Now. That was great. He wrote one called Orbiting Jupiter recently that was a foray into YA. That was amazing. I love his books. Let's see. I like Natalie Babbitt's Tuck Everlasting. That's a great one for junior high.
Also, it happens in the heat of summer,
It
so it's
does.
great to read in July and August.
Is it though, or do you really want to escape the heat
No,
of
you
August
don't.
and read something that's set in the North Pole?
Oh.
I don't know. It's up to you.
Anna asked the question. She asked if she could ask one mid-webinar, and she absolutely can. And she actually echoes something that was asked before the webinar, which is that she says, my youngest is on her 3rd year of Algebra 1 and graduates next year. When do you just quit and move on?
With math,
With anything, because people are asking when is it appropriate to just let go?
I don't know if I'm the best person to speak to that question, because I held on until the bitter end. Ask any of my kids, they'll tell you that it's true. I did. We actually never quit early. We always went up to the very last day.
Never? Did we never quit?
We kind of never quit early, did we, Ian?
I recall taking a whole year off at one point.
Ian decided when to quit.
Well, Ian, you were a
Different?
unique case, and I'm not sure I was
I'll
aware
decide when
of
to
all of
quit.
that. Ian may have taken advantage of me a couple of times.
Ian, Ruth says maybe that's why you don't know what a prime number is.
Yeah, Ian.
Ruth is just my plant in the audience. I planned that joke a week ago.
Yeah, honestly, I wish I'd taken a little more relaxed approach to that myself. I mean, I
When it-
do as I say, not as I do, I guess. I wish I had gone ahead and taken time off when I needed to take time off. And I wish I'd gone ahead and realized that it's not really necessary for every kid to get the same education. That's a real public school mentality, to tell you the honest truth. And I went to public school, K through 12. So of course I had that paradigm in my mind. And their idea is a kind of a conveyor belt education. You know, everybody gets the same, and it's expedient. But is it necessary? I was talking with a friend of mine a week or so ago, and she said, do we care whether or not Mozart got a really wonderful education in physics? No, we don't care. Who cares? What we care about is that he was able to pursue his passion for music, and he left us his legacy in that regard, and we're all better for it, right? So, I mean,
on the other hand,
yeah, but they didn't ask you.
That's true.
Wow, that is a really good point, and stirringly made, I might say.
I know what you're going to say, and you're right. It is important for people to be exposed to more things than just one, for a million good.
Yeah, like balancing a checkbook.
Yeah, of course.
Well, but like Kimberly says, that doesn't necessarily happen in high school, right? It could happen.
Say it again?
We don't finish our education in high school.
No.
And I think of the fact that I went to school with a ton of literature and history majors who graduated from college and then all of a sudden decided they wanted to go to med school and started their education in that field late, 22. Yeah, at college.
Yes,
So.
and they could do that because they had a liberal arts approach to education. They knew how to learn. And that is really where I was kind of going with that. John Henry Newman said that in his book, The Idea of a University, he talked about the fact that education should be like a nurturing mother, which is really where the idea of the alma mater, right, the university that you came from, it is the nurturing mother. And, you know, all the more so if it's a homeschooling education, and it really is the mother that is giving it to the child, right? That's where the metaphor is drawn. And of course, what he means is that instead of that conveyor belt education, the mother knows the child. She knows who he is, and she sees his gifts and his deficiencies, and she's always feeding the interests and then shoring him up in his deficiencies. She's calling him up a little more each day and encouraging him, right? Inspiring him. This is the perfect picture. I have to tell you, in my own experience, I was far from perfect at being a nurturing mother. And I'm pretty sure all my kids would agree with me about that. But that would be the goal. Did that answer the question at all? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was great. Okay, well, we should probably give
Two
something
giveaways?
away. We have
Yeah,
to give the
giveaways.
boring one.
We'll build up
it's
to
not
the.
boring.
We'll
I
build
shouldn't-
up to the.
Bad Emily. I shouldn't call this boring. It's not. It's actually not at all.
Everything we sell and or give away is fabulous.
I just meant the not really big one, the smaller one. So this is another Academy Library thing, which is actually, you guys, it's actually really cool. It is, how many classes are in here?
13.
13 2-hour-long classes, and this one is in American
The Adventures of
Literature.
Huckleberry Finn, The Great Gatsby, The Yearling, To Kill a Mockingbird, Peace Like
all
a
the
River.
American literature
That's
classes.
exciting. Emily's wrong.
Emily in chat box says, this is exciting. Emily is wrong.
Emily
I'm
is
sorry.
wrong.
I know. That's so. I even love all of those books.
I know you do. You're just-
Maybe it's just the fact that
You're just bitter because you don't get to teach them.
Maybe it's true. I'm
That's right.
high, so I never get to teach these classes. Okay, so we need someone to, Megan, let's go back to you. Why don't you give me, I'm going to go for people in the chat box who just have been telling us that they wanted to have an uproar at my calling it boring. Why don't you give us a number for me to count up?
Does it matter how high I count?
Matters
well,
whether
have
it's
mercy
prime.
on me.
I don't know about that. 9. I'm giving you 9.
9.
Mine's a perfect square.
Okay.
Farthest thing from
I'm
prime.
shaking things up a bit.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Jess Phillips. If I did
Jess
my
Phillips.
math correctly, it's you. So Jess, hit me up, send me an email, and we will get that to you. with your shipping address. Okay, couple more questions. We're going a little past, but we're wrapping it up because we still have a couple more things to give away.
We have one more thing to
We
go.
have one more. Well, and then I'm gonna. Does anyone here not have a copy of My Divine Comedy headed their way? Kristen.
Kristen.
Okay.
Oh, there's a few.
Yeah, there's a few. So what if Mom, will
Budget.
you inscribe it? Will you sign it if I give one away?
Of course.
Cool. So let's see. How should I choose?
Pick one and I'll take it to her. She'll sign it right now.
Cool. Here.
As
No, I
you
need to
watch.
Okay. Let's see. Mom, why don't you choose the number? It's your
Choose number
working way,
10.
your book.
10.
10.
The number is 10.
David.
I saw that, David.
Let's see. 1, 2,
Who am I
3,
inscribed to? Who am I
No, she's about to
inscribed to?
pick the first
5,
one.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Christine, it's you.
What's Christine's last name?
Christine Hart. This book is going to you. So if you want to send us your shipping address, we'll get that to you. Signed copy of My Divine Comedy. Okay. So, a couple more questions. How did you keep yourself motivated for the long haul? We have someone who says they've been doing it for a long time and they feel like when they're teaching, they've just been there, done that, but they have 9-year-old twins and they have to keep going for quite some time. So they would love any advice you have for staying motivated.
How to stay motivated over the long haul? Pray a lot. No, I think one of the ways that I stayed motivated is every year, right before, well, it would be at the end of the school year, I'd give myself a little breather, and then around about July, I'd start pulling out curriculum options. And I'd look at what I'd done before, and I'd look at the all the what I'm trying to say, the catalogs, all the things that were available for homeschooling. And I'd start putting together curriculum for the next year, designing what it was we were going to do. And I think about the different kids and where they were in their learning and what the options were, what were the possibilities. And it was one of the most gratifying parts of the school year because I really got to spend a lot of time thinking about my kids and how they were coming along. And I loved my kids, so that was delightful. And I got to pore over all of the resources, and there were growing resources. When I got started homeschooling the kids, there weren't nearly as many resources as there are now for homeschool families. Now there's just a sea of resources. And looking at a catalog can feel a lot like I used to feel when I look at a Sears Roebuck catalog or something like that, getting ready for Christmas when I was a kid, you know, circling, I want this. Can I have the baby alive? You know, and things like that. It was like, oh, it was just a dream. It was dreaming. It was a lot of dreaming. And when I looked at homeschool curriculum catalogs and started putting together book lists and reading lists and things like that, it was like preparing a feast of wonders for the kids. And I was more excited about it than they were, for sure, because I knew that I would get to read these things with them. And I would always choose a book that maybe I hadn't read with the kids before. You know, it's easy when you've done something for a really long time and you've already got something in place to never mix it up. Just, you know, why reinvent the wheel? But one of the reasons to reinvent the wheel every now and then and shake it up a little bit is so that you stay fresh in your teaching, so that you stay interested in what you're looking at with your kids every day. So that's one of the ways that I would stay on track with homeschooling. And the other way is to remember to take breaks, to reduce the number of classes. And again, do as I say, not as I do.
This is funny to hear her say that one. That's hilarious.
My husband would say to me every year when I would be so fatigued and anxious and just completely wrung out from trying to keep up with all of the, like, you guys, seriously, when all 6 kids were at home, when Ian reached his senior year, and this was in the midst of rebellion and things like that too, and all of the college prep, and, you know, I had all 6 kids and they were all schooling and they were all in different places, and I hadn't taught every single thing yet. I hadn't gotten all the way through a K through 12 education. So everything was going all at once. And that year in our homeschool co-op, just in literature, I taught 36 discrete titles. 36, folks. That's too many. And when I got to the end of the year, I had, okay, so all of my boys were doing baseball, and they were in 3 different leagues, and both of my girls were in ballet lessons, and they were taking ballet lessons at 2 different studios in 2 different towns. I kid you not, you guys. And I was at one of these baseball games, and one of the moms in our co-op came up to me, and she said, I was just thinking about all the books that you taught in our co-op this year, just in lit class. And, you know, I got to thinking, do you need some help? And I burst into tears. I had no idea. I mean, it hadn't really surfaced yet and come to my conscious mind that I was in way over my head. I was doing way too much. And of course, I needed to delegate some of this work to other people. I needed some help. So anyway, don't be afraid to delegate. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to scale it back, because education is not just the assimilation of facts. It's not like filling up a cup with knowledge, but it is, it's about gaining the tools to learn. And, you know, you can do that with just a couple books instead of with all of the books that are possible to read in the known universe. It's not necessarily about being exhaustive. And yes, I know. He's looking at me like, whatever, babe. Like I said, do as I say, not as I do. That's what I would say to my younger self. Relax already.
Cool. You had a lot of people asking you that too, the difference between what you thought then and what you think now.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, would I do it differently if I went back? I like to think that I would, but I probably wouldn't, because I'd still be me. And like a dog returning to his vomit. No, I'm just kidding.
We went there.
I don't know. I hope I learned. I hope I learned something, and I'd like to think that I would relax a little bit. And I do think that my understanding of grace has really developed over the years because of all that I talk about in the book, and then some, you know. And as a result, I hope that I would be able to repent. I hope I'd be able to repent to my kids along the way, honestly. I think that would change a lot of things. If I could, because I would probably, you know, still, what is it you say, Ian, make my heels click on carpet? I probably still do that.
I don't think I've ever said that about you personally, but come to think of it, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'm still that way. But I think now, at least I know that about myself. And so then going back and doing it over again, I hope I would see myself periodically making my heels click on carpet and trying to be exhaustive and exhausting myself and everyone else in the process, and say, oh, sorry, I'm doing that again. And we would have a nice laugh and maybe have a cup of chai tea and relax for a bit. That would be nice. You know, go out for a drive, have a walk.
Take a nap.
Take a nap.
Get some soup.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do 2 more questions.
And then the final giveaway.
And then the final giveaway.
And then we're gonna let these people have.
Yeah, then we're gonna let these nice people go. Okay, so practical question first. What advice would you give to someone who is giving just the best books to their children? It's boys, and they just cannot get their boys to enjoy reading for themselves, even though the books are wonderful.
The books are wonderful and rich, but the boys aren't engaging with those wonderful, rich books.
Yep, they don't want to read for themselves.
Yeah, I had one of those too. Aaron didn't.
That was not me for a change.
Called out.
Aaron did not love to read on his own for a long time. And I would give him books, and he would read. He wasn't rebellious about it. He would read if I gave him a book, and he, you know, but he was like, yeah, reading, I don't know. And by the way, guys, he ended up being a lit major, and now he's a journalist. He's a writer. And he turned out good. But it was hard for him to find a book. It's about finding that book, that one book that lights a fire in your kid. And you never know which one it's going to be, so don't give up. I guess that's what I'd say. Don't just assume that there are readers and there are non-readers. And I guess he's just a non-reader. And so, Oh, well. I think go back to the well. Find some good book lists. Find some people that that he identifies with and ask them what their favorite books are and give them those, right? Look for opportunities to make connections between the books that he's reading and the real world so that there's some interaction and it's not just a dry as dust academic kind of experience.
Do you remember what Erin's book was?
I do, yeah. Actually, it's called Science Fair, and it was by Dave Barry. It was hilariously funny.
That's a funny book.
I gave it to him as a birthday present, and I actually found him for the first time of his own volition in his bed in the middle of the day, reading this book and just laughing his head off. And after that, you know, he was a reader.
Oh. Yeah, Pulp Comedy for Teenagers by Dave Barry. Kidding you not.
He loved it. It was his in.
Okay, so here's how I think we'll do this. Let's choose a number between 1 and 36, and here let's show the last prize. So that, okay. And then I'll ask the last question while I have to count to choose our winner. So this is the last prize. This is the Mother's Day Treat Yourself basket.
Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. We have a mud mask, a Dead Sea mud mask, some fancy hand cream, some bath bombs, and this amazingly really soft fuzzy robe
that I had to convince her not to keep for herself.
It's really soft. It's really fuzzy.
Extremely fuzzy.
Treats, please.
So who should pick our last? Who should pick our last number?
Ruth says no fathers.
No fathers. I mean, Matthew, maybe you also would. You already won something, but father might enjoy a nice fuzzy basket. But it's Mother's Day. It's Mother's Day. We're gonna make sure this goes to a mother.
They're applying with resumes.
Yeah.
Mother of 4.
Mother of 4 is so tired.
Mother of 4.
Please pick me.
Okay, anybody top 4? Going once, going twice, going 3 times.
Mom, you do it. This is our last gift. You
Mother of 5 boys.
Oh my gosh.
What?
9.
No.
9. Mother of 9.
You have to pick a number. It has to be random.
Yeah, between 1 and 36.
Yeah, it's in the chat box. Okay, let's see.
36. We're doing 1 out
She's
of 36.
pregnant. I'll give that to that woman.
You want Marcy to have it?
Her 9th child. You guys, let's let everybody vote. Do you think we should give it to the lady who's pregnant with her 9th child? Of course you do. Yes, she gets it for sure.
Okay, hand chosen by Missy Andrews.
Yay! Yay!
Kristen says, I don't know, does she have time?
Matthew says, no! Joking.
Okay, Marcy. So funny. Email me, emily@centerforlit.com. Your address, we will get that to you. Nice fuzzy robe. Okay, last question. I saved this one. I thought this would be the appropriate way to wrap this up.
In the basket. Ruth is on a roll today.
Okay. Someone wrote, I'm having trouble not being Martha. I keep going and even complaining to myself that I'm not being like Mary, and that's why I'm doing all this when I want to be spending more time with my children, reading and doing more projects, but I can't stop. What do you recommend?
I hear you. That's who I am too. I'm definitely a Martha. And I have resented the books all about how Mary did it right and Martha did it wrong, and resisted all that was in those books. I don't know, there's probably some good profitable things in those books, but I couldn't hear them because they lost me at their titles, you know. God made me that way. God made you that way. You're a doer. Some of us are doers, and thank God for that, because the world needs to get some stuff done, and we get it done. So, you know, first of all, stop beating yourself up, because God made you and he loves you like you are. And he loves the Marys like they are too. The truth is, Mary and Martha are both precious in God's eyes. And in God's economy of grace, there's not a dime's worth of difference between Mary and Martha, because he loves them for who they are, not for what they do, not for the doing and not for the sitting, but he loves them because of who he is, right? So I think not attaching our identity or our sense of belonging to being Mary or Martha, and realizing that we're just loved. We're loved as we are and not as we should be, because who in the world is as they should be? None of us are as we should be. Not one of us. So if we can look to him and know that he sees us and he knows us and he loves us, and that nothing's writing on our being Mary or Martha. You know, we get to be ourselves, and it's a good thing, because what other options do we really have? There's no good news in me telling you you have to be something else, and that there's some secret formula that you can, it'll help you hark it up. That's not good news. You know, that's exhausting. And I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted already. No thanks. You guys can keep that. But if you tell me that I already belong and that I'm already loved, and that everything that's necessary for me to live has already been accomplished for me, whew, there's some rest. If you tell me that identity is not something that I create by doing it right, but it's something that I receive as a gift, that I'm actually named, and I'm named, honestly, I'm named by identification with him, and his name's the name that's above all names. There's no better name than the name that I get to be associated with. You know, I get to be associated with Jesus, and there's real identity in being called his. That kind of identity doesn't change with my doing or my lack of doing. It doesn't change when I'm succeeding or when I'm failing. It's permanent, and so I can bank on it. It gives me a lot of rest, and I hope it'll give you a lot of rest too. Be yourself. It's your only option.
Beautiful. Well, guys, it's a good party.
Great party. Thanks for coming, you guys.
Thank
That was
you.
awesome.
Thank you to
It's fun to have
everyone
some
for coming
company
and
to
celebrating
celebrate
with us
in this
today and making
COVID
this so
landscape.
special.
Yep, that was wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Well, one last round of applause for Missy Andrews, newly published author of her first memoir. You're going to just cheers outside the frame.
Cheers.
Thank you guys for coming. What a blessing.
I know that there were some questions we didn't get to on the list, and I'm sorry.
Maybe
that
we
there
can
were...
convince her to write a blog article about them.
Right, so we'll keep a hold of these questions and know that you asked them, and we will come to them in their time. So thank you. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for sending in your questions, and thanks for stopping by.
Happy Mother's Day to all
Happy
you
Mother's
moms
Day,
out
you
there.
mothers.
Many blessings.